Today, I wanted to share with you one of my favorite things to weave into my yoga practice. So, if you're not familiar with the Pranamat has all of these lotus spikes that essentially are acupressure. They open up the energy channels of the body. Now, my yoga practice is Katoni yoga, and it focuses on creating space in the body so that the energy can just move. And so we do this by focusing on the bones of the body rather than thinking that we need to work the muscles and change the muscles. By shifting the bones, the muscles change. And so what I really love about weaving the Pranamat into my practice is it works on the same premise of opening up the channels of the body and allowing the muscles to release. And so I'm going to share with you a few poses that I really love to do with my Pranamat. And if you do have yours, you can follow along. And if not, I will leave a link for the Pranamat below. And it's something that you can just weave into your practice. Now, I will say, before you do postures with a Pranamat, I really recommend using it first because we can be more sensitive. I walk barefoot, my feet are not that sensitive, but if you are sensitive, you're going to want to just spend some time getting used to the Pranamat, just having your feet on the Pranamat. Maybe you're sitting down in a chair with your feet on the Pranamat like this. And that way you're just getting used to the little spikes on your body first. After you've done that, and after you've spent some time having your hands and your feet on the Pranamat, then we get to open up the back. We get to open up different parts of our body with it. So the first thing really when you're using it, and this is the most basic way to use it, is to put the pillow underneath your head. And you will always feel more if you're not wearing clothes. And if you are wearing clothes, it'll make it a little bit easier. So always start wearing clothes. And when you're ready, you can do it without any clothes, and it's a little bit more intense. So you simply will lay down on the Pranamat and you will take the pillow underneath your head and the mat is underneath your body. And so you can either have your knees together. I find that this really puts more pressure on my sacrum, which is where I generally need more release, or you can extend your legs alongside the body. So just getting really comfortable with the Pranamat in this posture first is really important. The other thing you can get comfortable with too is using the pillow underneath your abdomen and just laying on the Pranamat like this and allowing the Pranamat to release everything that's going on, your organs, your glands, even your hip flexors can find some release here. And so the other thing that I really love to do is many of us do not have the alignment in our spine that we need to have a free posture. And what that means is we just carry tension in our bodies, unnecessary tension because we sit back all the time. It creates this reverse curvature in our spine where our lumbar spine is coming backwards and our thoracic spine ends up coming forwards. And this creates a lot of tension in the body, a lot of tension in the shoulders and the neck. And so one of the ways we can use it is to readjust the waves of the body and release the muscles in the body through using the Pranamat. And so I like to use it to support the natural waves of my spine. So you can roll up a blanket or, have a little bolster that you can put on the bottom part of the Pranamat like this. And then the neck one, you will just bunch up a little bit to make it a little bit bigger. And then that way, when you come onto the Pranamat, you are supporting the natural wave of your lower back here. So the sacrum will dip down a bit, and then you can take the other one behind your head and support the natural wave of the neck. And so just by having the wave of the lower back supported and then the wave of the neck supported, you'll start to release a lot of muscular tension that your body is holding from holding the spine in a misaligned position. And so as we're repatterning the spine through the yoga practice, the Pranamat can be really supportive to help those muscles that are holding on so tight to its old positioning to begin to release. And so I'll spend like 15 to 45 minutes here, however long I need. I like to do this one right before I go to bed. It just puts me in like a sleepy zone and it resets my spine before sleep. And so now, after you've played with, sitting on it with your feet, after you've played with laying on it, having it on your belly, you can weave in the Pranamat into a few of your practices. And so one of the ways I really like to weave it in is for my feet. I like to have this part of the mat as if it was like a high heel. So in my practice, I take a little bit of height underneath the heels of my feet, just underneath my heels, and then it allows my front body to come forward a little bit more so I can have a little back bend in my postures. And so the Pranamat can do the same thing. You can put your heels right on top of the pillow, and then your feet go on the front of the mat. And so as you're in a forward fold, you're getting your heels lifted, the weight shifted towards the balls of your feet. And then the little lotus spikes, the acupressure, can begin to release your feet. So a lot of tension that we feel in our feet will flow up into our hips. They're both quite related. And so it can be really nice if you're ready for it to use the mat in this way and to just rest here. And so that one's more intense if your feet are very sensitive. Mine, like I said, I don't wear shoes very often, so I'm always walking on the ground. The other thing you can do when you're in your forward fold is I like to actually get onto my Pranamat and sit on it and have the pillow underneath my knees so that my knees stay bent. If it's really hard for you to get into this position, then I can really recommend for you to grab a bolster and actually put it underneath your Pranamat so that you're lifted up a little bit. You can have another bolster underneath your knees on the mat. And what this does is it just lifts the mat up to where we tend to feel a lot of tightness and constriction in the backs of our legs, which are the attachment points of our hamstrings, right? So right behind the backs of the knees and right behind the butt muscles. And so if you can get into a forward fold here, it can be really nice to incorporate the Pranamat and to just have all of those little lotus spikes creating this acupressure underneath the muscles so that as you are in a forward fold, if you have a block, definitely grab it here. 1 or 2 blocks for your head. But just make sure you lift the height of the Pranamat up enough so that your knees can stay in your armpits. Because if you don't have that, then the hamstrings will be holding on too tight. So then the block can go underneath your head. And then the acupressure is releasing the whole backs of your legs here. And you can just rest here. And so again, definitely wear clothes or shorts for the butt. But if you feel like you're ready to have your skin on the spikes here in this forward fold, then yeah, definitely recommend wearing shorts here so that you can open up the backs of the legs just a little bit more. And so the other thing, if this one is really hard for you, but you feel like you need it on the insertion points of the hamstrings, you can take a chair because that will help you stay in your hips and just put the mat on the chair here. And then when you sit on it, you're working on this alignment in your pelvis. So not sitting back on the tail because it will not feel good, but tipping forward so that the acupressure is right underneath where all the hamstrings attach to your pelvis and working on your stance here. And now this is where, if you want to take your pillow down on the ground and put your feet on the Pranamat here, you can be getting all of this opening in the bottoms of the feet and the backs of the legs here. And so those are a few ways I like to weave the Pranamat into my practice. If you are working with tight hands, another thing you can do, this one's going to be a little bit more intense, of course. So I really just want to preface that before you come into it. But if you're working on your hands, it can be nice to go into a table pose. And this is when we can measure our hands out shoulder distance, which is when you bring your middle fingers into touch and you pivot your hands out right on your thumb mound away from one another. But I do like to have the mat on one side and just play with bringing one hand onto the mat at a time and circling it around the whole palm of my hand. And so the hand that's on the ground is really like a guide, so that as you're rolling it around on your hand, you're putting a little bit of weight into the spikes to just feel those parts of your hand that can get really tight. And you're just spending a little bit more time opening it up and breathing into it. This one you don't have to hold for very long. If you've done my other videos and you're in my practices on my app, in my virtual yoga studio, and you know how to flip your wrist here, it can be really nice to flip your wrist here and to just really start to open up the parts of the hand that get so tight just from all of the things that we do with our hands. One thing the Pranamat really brings awareness to if you're using it on your hands is where you go too heavy on the hands. And so you can use it as a guide when you're in table pose, not only so that you're not working in your upper body so much, but that when you're in your hands, right, because you will have to find your hips here, you'll have more kind of weight in your lower body as you come forward and back, but you'll start to feel the parts of your hand that you put too much pressure and too much weight in. And those are the parts of your hand where you'll get really tight and dense. And so you'll start to feel with both hands, without one hand supporting the other, where your hands need to open up. And again, this is one that I would definitely go slow with doing. I would really start with one hand at a time and just start working on creating a little bit more opening in the palm of the hand with the mat here. But then eventually you really can start to weave in both hands in the Pranamat and go really slow and just find more ways to create energy flow in your hands, because the hands are one of the places that get so tight and dense from modern day living, and our wrists especially. And so the last thing that you can do here is when you come into a child's pose, you can just bring your forearms and the palms of your hands on the mat. You don't want to put your face obviously on the mat, so you can take something in front of you and just let your forearms and the palms of your hands just release here. And so those are a few things that you can do to weave into your practice with the Pranamat. I use it in so many different poses, especially when I'm feeling imbalances in my body. It really helps bring awareness to the parts of my body where I go really hard and heavy. If I'm in my feet, I'll really feel it. And so there's so many ways that you can open up your body so that you feel incredible in your body. Like, this is what it is all about. The better you feel in the body, the easier it is to live in the body. And that is why I teach the practices I teach. That is why you're following along with these practices. And I always love to incorporate tools such as the Pranamat so that I can unwind my body from the stresses of modern day living in really gentle, supportive, holistic, and natural ways. So again, if you have your Pranamat, give some of those a try. Go really gentle, go really slow with yourself, right? You don't need to like go gung-ho on everything. It's just really about opening up and moving the flow into the body with these little acupressure needles, essentially. And if you don't have your Pranamat, I'll leave my link below. You can grab yours and follow along with this video. This has taken so much pain out of my lower back, out of my whole entire spine. It is just so supportive for the ways in which we live our lives in this modern day world. So thank you for joining me in this video, and I will see you in the next one.